This is Center Stage, putting lawyers in the spotlight by highlighting attorneys and other industry experts to help take your law firm to the next level. Hey everyone, and welcome to Center Stage. I'm your host, John Henson, and this week, really fun topic this week. It's one that I don't know a whole lot about, but I'm really interested in, and that is the exploding world of cryptocurrencies. And obviously, you know, this show's geared toward lawyers, so we're going to be talking a lot about how you could potentially have a practice area around cryptocurrency. We may be talking about some ethical issues around crypto and just what all of that can mean moving forward. This week, my guest, attorney Yev Muchnik, she is here to hopefully simplify cryptocurrency, because I have yet to find anyone who has an understandable definition of exactly what it is. And then she's going to walk us through some areas to consider as we move forward. So Yev, thank you so much for taking some time to join us today.
Thank you for having me. It's an utter pleasure to be on with you. So I'm excited for this session today.
Awesome. So yeah, before we jump in, tell us a little bit about yourself, your law firm, and just kind of how you got into crypto in the first place.
Sure. So as John mentioned, and I apologize in advance, I do have a little bit of a summer cold going on, so there may be a little bit of coughing and hoarseness, but luckily it's not the dreaded
it's not the bad one.
Virus. No, it's not the bad one. So I'm a corporate and securities attorney by experience, by practice, and started with a big law firm as a junior associate in their corporate and M&A practice groups. So really built a nice solid foundation on securities law, which has really helped me kind of try to figure out kind of the existing landscape of blockchain and cryptocurrency and virtual currencies. But I have been practicing for about 13 years now. I have my own boutique transactional firm here in Denver, Colorado called Launch Legal. I'm also of counsel to a wonderful firm called Jason Weiner PC, who specialize in cooperatives and exit to community and employee ownership models. So it's been a really nice bridge of being able to combine a lot of these merging principles with kind of the traditional basis for securities and corporate and financing, and then merging them into this new world with kind of the intersection of Web 3.0 and our legal practice. So, yeah. And I have, I think by all accounts, I'm considered a veteran in this space, because I've been in this world and trying to navigate it since about 2016, 2017, which is for a nascent industry is a pretty long time.
Yeah. It's crazy to think that this stuff has been around even that long. So yeah, I mean, I guess kind of before we jump into the weeds here, help me and help us understand, like, what is cryptocurrency? Is it obviously it's not like a real tangible thing, but like, is it like digital money? What is blockchain? Like, what are all of these words? Like, what does it mean?
I mean, these are all big questions. So I think the most important thing is to differentiate between to start sort of your kind of deep dive into this area by being able to differentiate between cryptocurrency and blockchain, which are two very different things. But cryptocurrency is sort of derived from blockchain distributed ledger technology. And so I actually pulled up a definition of cryptocurrency as defined by the IRS. So because there are so many regulatory agencies sort of involved at the moment in this industry, in the landscape, and there's not really clear-cut kind of bright line guidance. And so as practitioners, we've been trying to, pick bits and pieces of whatever is available and what the agencies are able to put out there. So I think the IRS does it really well, and they consider cryptocurrency at least as property, and they tax it as property. So they defined it as a type of virtual currency that uses cryptography to secure transactions that are digitally recorded on a distributed ledger, such as the blockchain. A transaction involving crypto that is recorded on the distributed ledger can be on-chain if it's on the blockchain, or if it's not recorded on the distributed ledger technology, then it's off-chain. And it's, some of the benefits, and there's a myriad of benefits, but some often cited benefits is that it's an immutable ledger. So it's really difficult to counterfeit or to sort of meddle and, along the way as it's already sitting on the DLT on the blockchain, any kind of transaction or any kind of hash or input. There's obviously, questions as to the initial input of it going onto the blockchain and whether that could be corrupted or whether, there's any kind of fraud or counterfeiting that's available from that point. But again, that's another sort of longer discussion. So immutability, and then just the fact that it removes the central agent out of a lot of transactions that we typically see, right? It's kind of a peer-to-peer network. And because there are blocks that sort of replicate other blocks, then you've got the Genesis block, which is kind of the very first one. And then if there's any kind of interception or any kind of wrongdoing, then they're able to kind of track that from a technology perspective. So I don't know if that breaks it down for you in a more sort of consumptive way that you understand, but generally speaking, cryptocurrency is a virtual currency, and it's either convertible, which means that it can be used for value, whether it's like exchangeable into other types of currencies, or whether it's value within a closed system. And then the blockchain, and blockchain makes it so.
Got it. So that makes sense. So cryptocurrency is basically a product. If I'm simplifying it in my own language, cryptocurrency is basically the product of, I guess, whatever blockchain is doing. What, I guess, for a little bit more context, what exactly is blockchain?
So blockchain is really this distributed ledger technology. It's kind of the fundamental basis on which things can be built. So whether it is a virtual currency or a token or a decentralized app or any kind of, I don't know if I've meant protocol, so like Ethereum protocol or Bitcoin protocol, or any other kind of protocol. I won't throw out some more of the alt names out there, but so it's just the technology that makes it so.
Got it. So, I mean, is it, I guess in a way, is it sort of like a more advanced version of like HTML or CSS, like these coding languages that we've used to build websites, but now this is something a little bit more advanced?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
okay.
So actually cryptography has been around for a very long time. And I think it was, don't quote me on the exact war, but I mean, it was used as like a method of secure communications during First World War. I don't know, but it's been around for a very long time.
Yeah.
So the principle and the way that it's advanced, is fueled by sort of where we kind of the Web 3.0 space that we have now.
Yeah. Awesome. Now I feel so much better because I think that it all finally clicked. All right. We have blockchain.
You had the aha moment.
Yes. We have blockchain, and it's the coding system, for lack of a better term, and it's producing these cryptocurrencies that can't be counterfeited, or it's extremely difficult to counterfeit them. And that is why so many people think that it's the future of, transactions and the future way that we'll spend money. And that's why all of these people are trying to get paid in Bitcoin and all of that now. So wonderful. All right. So
yeah, I mean, it's a frictionless way to transact, right? That I don't need to rely on a bank to send you, money or any kind of currency, and I could do that in seconds.
Yeah.
And it's all on this public blockchain, which, you can't then go back and say, oh, you never sent it to me, because then I can point to the blockchain and there's a hash that the evidence isn't. So from kind of an evidence perspective, it's very novel as well, and influences even how we practice law, right? And how we bring evidence into court.
Yeah. So then let's talk about that's a great way to transition into this. Let's say that a lawyer wants to add issues around cryptocurrency as a practice area to their firm. Like what kinds of issues or cases would a lawyer handle with regards to cryptocurrency? And is there a practice area that sort of that already exists that sort of lends itself to fitting in with cryptocurrency? I know you mentioned IRS. So is that like, would a tax attorney be really good at that? Or would it be more maybe like an intellectual property attorney? Like who would really benefit from this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got sort of wide practice group presence or potential presence. And I mean, it kind of permeates a lot of practice groups. So I personally, I deal with transactional and corporate and securities. So from a securities perspective, we're analyzing whether it was, when it started in 2016, 2017, and through the 2018 era, we were looking at ICOs, which are initial coin offerings, and trying to analyze whether they should be treated as securities or utility tokens, and putting the lens of the Howey test on a lot of these issuances and how projects were trying to raise capital through these issuances. So that's one sort of perspective or lens. And that continues through today. So, there are a lot of projects that are issuing various kinds of tokens, whether they're governance tokens or they're community tokens or social tokens, or they're a vehicle for raising capital, for kind of seed stage capital. So again, sort of kind of providing guidance on how to, from compliance perspective, whether it's with the SEC or the CFTC, and the steps that are needed to be taken by those companies and individuals that are pursuing that track. Obviously, there's kind of a sort of a new industry that has developed for litigators as well, and different kinds of fraud investigations and disputes, and having to understand this whole new kind of taxonomy of what's happening on chain, right? If you're using smart contracts to affect transactions, how do you go and dispute those transactions? Can you do them on chain as well? And there are a lot of movements where you can do so. Everything is like you almost have like online ADR that's on chain, which is pretty cool. But fraud has always been pretty topical in this space, right? Whether you're using crypto to perpetuate fraud, or you're kind of defrauding investors. So that's, from different angles, that's a big topic.
Yeah.
Patents and intellectual property, as you aptly correctly mentioned. So that's a huge area, whether it's trademarks or patents or internet and digital media and content licensing and things like that. Again, compliance and regulatory, so KYC, money transmitter laws, money service businesses, things of that nature. From my perspective, again, from corporate and securities, there's sort of a huge rise in the use of alternative legal entity structures. So the DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization, is becoming increasingly popular, has been popular for a long time. And now Wyoming affords the ability for these groups of people that are, it's typically that don't use some kind of a legal vehicle or entity like an LLC or a corporation, to be able to use that as a forum to protect them from liability, and to sort of be able to kind of exclude certain fiduciary duties to other kind of partners, instead of being deemed a general partnership by default. So that's been really interesting to see, and to to be a part of that as it's grown. But
Yeah.
I mean, decentralization and kind of distribution into networks and federations, that's a huge kind of underlying premise in the crypto and blockchain communities. And it's something it's this very sort of purist way of looking at things, that these groups come together to incentivize, to reward contributors and participants in their network in developing new technology, or kind of general community collaboration. And like there's a lot of philosophical principles in blockchain, which probably some people wouldn't expect, but that's kind of the angle that these communities come together and try to build them. And then they operate in this way, and then they're like, well, hold on a second, how do we contract with another entity that does need an entity? How do we open up a bank account? How do we sue? Do we have standing to sue if we're unincorporated, for example?
Yeah.
So just a lot of interesting kind of novel areas of the law, I guess, or at least trying to apply sort of what we know to what we think, and then waiting for the regulators to come in and help guide us on some of these principles.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of why a lot of this is unknown, because a lot of it is still really unregulated, and we're trying to figure out, or at least the government's trying to figure out how to regulate all of that. You did mention like litigation and stuff. I haven't heard of it happening yet, but do you think we'll get to a point where people will start suing and filing lawsuits and try to get damages awarded in cryptocurrency rather than US dollars or whatever currency the country they're in?
That's a good question. I mean, I haven't seen it done as well, but I would imagine that, you would, like in a tort claim, right? You'd need to be put back into the position that you were prior to the tort occurring, right? As damages. So I would imagine that if that involved like holding a certain amount of cryptocurrency, then that could be something feasible to assert.
Yeah. Cool. So let's kind of transition now over to some just ethical issues, because I know it's big for attorneys out there, whether they're like accepting it as a form of payment, or maybe just drifting into dealing with some sort of legal issue that comes up. Like, what are some of the ethics issues that attorneys should be considering?
Yeah, I mean, and you should definitely be thinking about that. But there are a number of states that have issued their own ethics opinions on the subject matter and accepting crypto for services or some kind of virtual currency or digital assets. And I mean, the general consensus is that you can do it, but there are definitely guidelines in doing so. So if you are accepting crypto for for services that have not yet been rendered and you're putting into your trust account, you would need to convert it on that day into fiat or some kind of, US dollars or legal tender that's recognizable by the US, so that it doesn't have that volatility and fluctuation. So if you gave me 1 Bitcoin for, setting up a company for you, I'd have to trade it or exchange it on the markets today.
Okay.
On the spot markets today. If you were accepting crypto sort of in an escrow situation where you're holding it in trust for the client, then you would treat it with the same safeguards as you do any other kind of property for the client. But then for services rendered already and kind of payment that's for not something that's being done in advance, but that's something that's already been done, then you're free to accept crypto as you will. And I have to share the story, but
yeah,
I mean, I probably should have accepted a lot more crypto than I have in the past, being in the space for this long. But I did accept about $5,000 for some contracts that I put together, some other legal work, probably 3 years ago. And as you probably are aware, we had this incredible rise, this bullish market in the last 6 months or so, probably because of DeFi summer that happened last year. But I totally forgot about this hard wallet, crypto wallet that I had. And I had opened it up, I think it was in probably before the Bitcoin not crash, but like it was up to $65,000, the equivalent of $65,000. Now it's trading at about between $29,000 and $31,000. So I had opened it up before, I think that's before May. And there was $40,000+ sitting in there from that $5,000 that I accepted for legal services. So if the question is, whether you should consider playing around in this space, I would say absolutely so. And there's enough kind of definitive guidelines from the bar, from your state bar, from the ABA, that sort of give you, kind of safeguards in how to operate in this space.
Yeah. So, non-legal question and total disclaimer, like you are not a financial advisor in any way. Like this is all your opinion, but like if a lawyer is going to start exploring, maybe accepting crypto, like which crypto would you recommend they start with? Bitcoin, Ethereum, I don't think really anyone's still taking Dogecoin seriously,
but you can.
You can for sure. Yeah.
I certainly have clients that are issuing meme tokens and, they're doing really well. So, I'm not a financial advisor, and I'm not I wish I was a more savvy trader than I am, because, I would probably even consider leaving the practice of law and setting up some kind of a fund with all of that money that I could have made. But I would say probably kind of there's a lot of stability in potential stability in the long term, right? It's a long-term game, right? So you can't really be affected by these fluctuations and going in and out. So as long as you're going into this field with that mindset and diversifying, I think that's really been the message from different financial planners, that it's a solid asset class, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, or if you want to play with altcoins, but it's, it should probably take up about 5% of your portfolio. So I would recommend those. And then stable coins as well are, a relatively safe bet. So USDC and USDT, and there are other stable coins. And I think that we'll see regulation on that side probably a lot quicker than anywhere else. So
yeah, awesome. Well, I think that's going to kind of start to wrap things up here. This has been a lot of really good information. I mean, it clicked for me. Hopefully it clicked a little bit for all of you out there. If not, go back and listen to it again. And I think it'll click for you.
And I mean, this is such a hot and interesting practice there. I mean, if you're really risk averse, you should probably, kind of circle around it. But but you have to have somewhat of a risk tolerance to advise in this space, because there are a lot of unknowns. So as long as you feel comfortable being uncomfortable, then it's a really fun place to be in, and you feel, in advising clients, like you're really influencing the direction of the law, and sort of it's really a combination of the intersection of law and technology and innovation, and that's exciting. I mean, and the US is I think a great place to be for that. I know that not everybody agrees, but I think ultimately that's what we promote is innovation. And so to the extent that we can keep it here and not drive it out, I think that's really important.
Yeah. So we always ask one final question before we wrap things up. And that is, if you had one piece of advice for our attorneys out there, what would it be?
Oh gosh. My piece of advice would be, to play in areas where you don't necessarily feel comfortable. And I already gave the example of, taking 5,000 and then kind of it turning into 40,000. Yeah. So I'm a pretty entrepreneurial attorney in a lot of ways. And I think, I would say take calculated risks and don't be afraid, because it's moving. And if you are left behind, then it's probably not going to be to your advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think, I feel like I'm a pretty cautious and conservative person. 5% in a portfolio to me doesn't sound like a whole lot. And even, all of the potential growth and change that could come with cryptocurrency becoming even more and more widely accepted. Like, I feel like the right now, at least, there's so much more potential than drawbacks for just kind of exploring it, educating yourself. At least, if cryptocurrencies disappear tomorrow, like you at least have the knowledge of like what was going on and understand what this was. And if it keeps exploding and it becomes a universal global thing that, and we somehow just get rid of paper money and all of that, then you are up at the front and able to help lead everyone else along. So I totally agree. I really do appreciate you taking some time to come and talk with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. And I would say, just as final last words, I don't think cryptocurrency is going anywhere.
No. So not at all.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great. And to the listeners and the viewers, please feel free to reach out, yev@launch-legal.com. If you have any questions as to how to incorporate crypto or blockchain into your practice, or would generally like to collaborate on anything from NFTs to crypto to DeFi or otherwise, please feel free to reach out.
Yes. And I will put your contact information in the show notes. So please definitely reach out there because I'm sure you guys have a ton of questions after this episode. Thank you for listening. Thank you for continuing to rate and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and wherever else you're checking out the show. And that's going to do it for us this week. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. To learn more, go to spotlightbranding.com/centerstage.